I'd like to start by thanking all of you for choosing to spend your afternoon with us. We know there are other wonderful workshops happening at the same time, so we do appreciate you being here. Our focus is on uniting for impact, and we're going to be weaving throughout our presentation information about interagency collaboration and the work that we've been doing within our area. We'll start with introductions.
Hi, my name is Danielle Wells. I'm an early childhood program manager at the Valley Mountain Regional Center in Stockton, and we oversee the San Joaquin County area in that area.
My name is Kristi Baysinger. I'm the Director of Behavior and Autism Services at San Joaquin County Office of Education. I also currently serve as a Captain Regional Implementation Lead within San Joaquin County.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Rettinhouse, and I'm the Autism Clinical Specialist for Alta Regional Center located here in Sacramento. And I also represent captain leadership for our regional centers.
Hi, I'm Becky Rahn. I'm a former special education teacher and currently a behavior support specialist in BCBA with the Elk Grove Unified School District. And I'm also part of the captain cadre for the Capital Captain region.
Before we begin, we'd like to share our perspective with you in terms of speakers. So we want to make sure that you understand our choice to use varied language, meaning both disability specific or for person first language. For example, we may say autistic person. Other times you might hear us refer to somebody as an individual with a disability. Our choice to go between the two is intentional so that we can respect the varied preferences of the disability community. The four of us here today are presenting from a professional lens, and we want you to know we're allies of the disability community, and everything we say today hopefully comes across respectfully, and know that we want to honor you in the language that we're choosing as well as the information that we're sharing with you today.
Okay, so the topics that we will be covering today in this presentation, we're going to talk about captains and evidence-based practice and what that is. Supporting the use of evidence-based practices, or what you might hear us say is EBPs, across different ages and settings, and then also get into that interagency collaboration piece. So what is captain? As you know, in our workforce, we always love our acronyms. So captain stands for California Autism Professional Training and Information Network. It's a multi-agency network that's comprised of the SELPAs, or your special education local plan areas, your regional centers, California Department of Education, it encompasses all of your school districts, the University Centers for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, and the Family Resource Centers, or networks of California. Captains and cadre work together to achieve regional and statewide goals that focus on the dissemination of information on autism and evidence-based practices. We really focus on implementation of EBPs in the homes, in the schools, and community, and increasing that interagency collaboration, which is all those things we're really going to get into today with our presentation. Our shared mission is to increase knowledge of autism and EBPs, improving implementation of autism and EBPs, and improving interagency collaboration and coordination while creating an equipped workforce and system of support. So there's a video that we'll do, but Captain really spans the state of California, and in each region, like for Kristi and I, we are both a part of Captain Hook region, which is in the San Joaquin County area, and all the cadre within that area, we meet regularly, we work together, we focus on how we can support the implementation of EBPs, whether it be in the schools, in the classrooms, in the school districts, or through the regional center services, or even family support agency services.
So we are starting the presentation off giving you a little bit of information about the work we are doing to make sure you have a good understanding of the lens from which we're working through. So I'll go a little bit deeper. Danielle kind of already touched on this, that our cadre, we have kind of three overarching goals as a whole. So that first goal, of course, is just information dissemination. We want to make sure that people working with individuals with autism have a good understanding about what works to help support them in home settings, school settings, and community settings. So our ultimate goal is making sure that high quality, current, up-to-date, evidence-based practices, the information regarding those are out there, and that there are high quality resources available to families, community members, as well as educators. Okay, so that's that first part. The next part is it's not good enough just to make sure we have evidence-based practices available or resources available. We want to make sure they're being used effectively and with, integrity. So are we with fidelity, rather, is what I'm trying to say. So the next part of it is throughout the state, we set our dissemination goals, and then we work within our regions on those implementation goals. Again, with that shared common goal of improving the experience for individuals with autism. And then the last part, and I'll talk more about this later, is the interagency collaboration. So we just introduced ourselves, and you can see that all 4 of us represent different agencies, and we actually span across several different regions within the state. It's really about building partnerships so that we can, maximize what resources we have, pull those resources together so that we can improve outcomes and improve supports in home, school, and community-based settings. I'm going to share for you next a brief video that Captain put together that will give you a little bit more nitty-gritty, a little bit of detail about the overall structure and how it's outlined throughout the state.
So you've heard about and are interested in learning more about the California Autism Professional Training and Information Network, or CAPTIN. CAPTIN is a multi-agency network developed to support the understanding and use of evidence-based practices for individuals with autism across the state of California. It's made up of over 400 representatives from various agencies that support individuals with autism and their families, including regional centers, special education local plan areas, state and federally funded family support agencies, and higher education preparation programs. These representatives are known as Captain Cadre, and they cover the entire state, providing information, training, and resources related to autism and evidence-based practices. CAPTIN is guided by a multi-agency leadership team of 40 individuals who work with the various stakeholder groups within California to guide the efforts of CAPTIN and align with state priorities and needs. Autism has continued to increase in prevalence, with incidence currently at 1 in 36, according to the Centers for Disease Control. In our California public schools, there are almost 150,000 students who qualify for special education under the qualifying disability of autism. CAPTIN was developed in order to respond to these increasing needs and improve programs and services for individuals with autism. The vision of CAPTIN is to develop and maintain a training and technical assistance network focused on the use of evidence-based practices for autism that is inclusive of agencies that will work at the local level to collaboratively solve challenges and improve services for individuals with autism within their communities. To achieve this, CAPTIN's goals include increasing knowledge about autism and evidence-based practices through systematic dissemination of information, increasing implementation and fidelity of evidence-based practice use in schools and communities through high-quality training and coaching, and increasing interagency collaborations to make sure autism evidence-based practices are used equitably across the state. Our hope is that all individuals with autism can experience the most fulfilled lives and achieve their best outcomes by benefiting from high-quality, research-based services and practices. If you have any questions or would like to discuss CAPTIN, please reach out via email at hs-captain@ucdavis.edu or go to our website at www.captain.ca.gov. Thank you very much for your interest in CAPTIN.
That video, if you should want to watch it again, is available on captain.ca.gov, and we can provide you with that before you leave here today. So You've heard us already talk quite a bit about evidence-based practices, and what you see up here are the 28 identified as evidence-based practices. And what that means is each of these strategies have been scientifically researched and validated and shown to be effective for working with autistic individuals, okay? So there are trainings for all of these and free resources available, but that's not the purpose of our meeting today. Our time today. What we will be doing now is transitioning through some different ways we've incorporated evidence-based practices, or you might hear us refer to them as EBPs, within our region in order to meet the needs. So I'm going to be handing this off to one of my colleagues, Mary, and she's going to talk about how they have incorporated evidence-based practices in Early Start.
So yes, just as Kristi shared, we have these 28 evidence-based practices, but what does that really mean? What does that really look like at the human level? And when we're working with individuals. And so what I'm going to share with you is how evidence-based practices are incorporated into our Early Start program. So we'll begin with discussing what is Early Start, first of all. So we may not all be familiar with that, and what Early Start is it's a state-run program administered through the Department of Developmental Services in conjunction with the Department of Education that serves our 0 to 3 population that either have some established condition or are at risk. So let's say premature babies or drug exposed infants. So if you're placed at risk, then you would be eligible for these Early Start services, which are really great. And they provide an array of different kinds of specialties depending on the needs. So a baby might access speech therapy, infant development, physical therapy. It all just depends on the unique needs of that child. And the services are provided in the child's natural environment, which is really important. And there's a huge emphasis and focus on parent training and coaching. So more specifically, thinking about that list of 28, we wanted to share with you what are the most critical for these infants. And we really like this particular resource. It's the ASD Toddler Initiative. And I know, we talk about a lot of this with an autism focus, but really what I want to emphasize is that these practices are all founded in behavioral principles, which applies to everybody. So these aren't just things that work for children with autism. These are strategies that will work for anyone. But the core 6 for our infants are going to be modeling, reinforcement, naturalistic intervention, pivotal response treatment, functional behavior assessment, and prompting. So those are the 6 of the 28 that we really focus on with the babies. But how? How do we implement those? How do we get our parents knowledgeable and understanding of what these interventions are? This is the strategy that's primarily used in our Early Start programs, and that's called parent implemented interventions. So not only do we want to empower families and we want to preserve that parent-child relationship, but also it's evidence-based, believe it or not. Some parents, including myself, will tell you, I don't know, I think my child would rather learn from someone else. But believe it or not, when we can utilize these strategies effectively, we can really be effective teachers for our own kids. So that's what parent implemented interventions is all about. It's about having practitioners train and coach parents in how to effectively use those strategies. Use modeling to teach a skill. Use reinforcement to motivate your little one to do something like keep on their diaper or whatever it might be. Some of the other commonly used terms that you might hear or might have heard include parent-mediated interventions, caregiver-mediated interventions, caregiver-delivered interventions, and parent training programs. The core components of any effective parent-implemented intervention are going to be listed here. So we have collaborative planning, systematic instruction and modeling, parent practice with some feedback, and then some ongoing support with problem solving. Okay, and I'm going to need our tech support up here to help me. So that's what we're going to watch, a little video sample. This is from the Autism Focused Intervention Resource and Modules, or AFFIRM, and they're going to show us a little snippet of what that collaborative treatment planning looks like.
In this clip, the practitioner is facilitating a discussion around potential evidence-based practices for the mother to use with her child.
All right, so based on your areas of need and what you've shared with me so far, I think a few EBPs might be appropriate to help Xander clean up at night and transition into other activities, away from some of his preferred activities. There's something called modeling, which is basically you and or his siblings showing him how to clean up. So basically picking up the ball, putting it in the bucket, and then Xander can watch and maybe try to imitate him himself. There's also reinforcement for doing the cleaning up. We can talk more about what types of reinforcement he might respond well to if that's something you want to try. Or there's something called visual supports, which is basically using pictures to help model or show Xander what to do. You could take pictures of his siblings cleaning up the balls, or have a step-by-step, grab the ball, put it in the bucket, reinforce or whatever in a step-by-step kind of picture way. So are there any of these in particular that sound like a good fit
I
for
do
you?
like the idea of modeling.
Mm-hmm.
He does like taking his brother into Starla, so I think that might be good.
And you think they would like doing it too?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good one to try.
Cool.
The visual supports, I'm not quite sure with our routines and how busy we are if I would
Mhm.
be putting the time in to make the visual supports.
Mhm.
Don't know if I would be doing that enough to make it.
Yeah, that can be, it can be time consuming, and you have to remember where the pictures are and go get them and using them. Yeah, I
Can mommy have
understand.
that back? And I think reinforcement would be really good too.
Uh-huh.
Did you notice how the practitioner explained details of each of the potential evidence-based practices to the mother? She allowed the mother to select modeling and reinforcement as the best practices that would best fit into the daily routines and activities of the family.
So that's real, right? I mean, we have our little one kind of interrupting in the background, having to kind of interrupt and having to deal with that. But you see what the practitioner did there, where they gave the parent the option. They didn't come in and say, okay, this is what we're doing, this is the plan. They said, hey, I could envision doing a couple different things here. What do you think? What would work best for your family? And then next would come the systematic instruction piece. So that parent chose modeling in that example. So what the provider would then do is provide some education on what modeling is. And so that would usually look like giving some information, maybe sharing a virtual or video module with the family to watch so that they really understand what that is as a practice for teaching. And then also they would demonstrate how that looks. Okay, and so our next video is going to be the modeling piece. So in this, what you'll see is the practitioner showing the parent how to utilize the strategy.
The mother selected modeling as the evidence-based practice to use to address her child cleaning up toys. Watch as the practitioner demonstrates how she would model cleaning up to the child.
Okay, so as far as modeling, it's not too complicated. It's actually just doing what you want Xander to do. So taking balls while he's watching and putting it in the bucket. And then when he does successfully put it in the bucket, that's when we want to go to our reinforcement. So you can clap, and cheer, and high five, or whatever you think is the right fit for whatever he's doing. Okay. Or whatever he's preferring that any given day. I guess you can do ice cream too, right?
That's true.
Okay, well, cool. Do you want to try it?
Yeah. So I'm just gonna model it for him.
There you go. You got it.
Perfect. Do a little animation and have
Yeah.
fun with it.
Did you notice that the practitioner had the parent practice modeling and reinforcement following her demonstration? The practitioner provided feedback that the practices were being used correctly.
And then after modeling is going to come practice. So the parent saw how it would go, and then now they get to actually practice it with their child in front of the practitioner. So that way the practitioner can kind of guide them through that process. And this is usually when it gets tricky or things don't always go perfectly. And that's when that troubleshooting support is typically really needed. And this is when the practitioner can provide some suggestions of different routines that the parent might utilize the strategy with, or maybe even videotape the parent so that they can do the self-reflection piece afterward. And then that's going to be the feedback piece, is having the parent really lead that piece. Hey, how did that feel for you? Instead of coming in and going, well, you did that wrong, or that didn't work out, did it? What you want to do is really have the parent self-reflect and think about how that felt for them, what worked well, what didn't work well, because then that's going to help them come up with solutions that are going to work as well. And then ongoing until we get to the point of being successful, the support that can be provided is the troubleshooting. So monitoring for progress, we're seeing, is this really working? Is it helping to teach our little guy to clean up more successfully? Or is this not really working? Do we need to go back to the drawing board? So as challenges come up, what the practitioner would do is guide the parent through a problem-solving process, which typically would involve identifying what the challenges are. So you might observe the parent and the child. Does it seem like the child's enjoying this? Is it a struggle every time? Asking the parent what's working, what's not working. Discuss possible solutions for that barrier. So ask the parent, does he seem to be into this? Does he seem to be really not into it? Does your child seem overwhelmed by all of what we're asking them to do? What do you think would motivate them? If you talk to a parent, parents typically know, what is going to motivate their child. I had one mom that I consulted with briefly tell me, oh, juice. He'll do anything for juice. And so we said, okay, well, let's tell him, put the diaper on, and then we'll give you the juice. Yep, work like a charm. No kicking, no screaming. So, that was just a really easy solution for her, but it just didn't come naturally. And then the follow-up. So observe to see if the child seems to be enjoying the activity a little bit more, and ask the parent what they think. Okay, so next we're going to focus on, once we've entered school age, how do evidence-based practices, how are they typically used or implemented by our teachers and now our educators as well? And so we're going to have Becky come up and talk about that.
Thank you, Mary. So as Mary mentioned, she talked about how we can implement evidence-based practices in the early years. This part is going to be looking at how can we go about implementing evidence-based practices for individuals with autism in the school setting. So preschool all the way up through 21 when they're receiving services in a school-based setting. I'm going to be talking about how we've been able to implement this specifically with the district that I work with. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about doing this, but this is one way that we have found that has been successful, and a way that we've been able to sustain the use of evidence-based practices in our preschool program over time. So we're going to do a little history going back to 2011. At that time, we had an outside consultant come into the district, and we went through something called the APDAR process, the Autism Program Development and Review. This process really helped us to review our whole program, our special ed program in preschool, and we found that within our current special ed classrooms that we had, we were lacking coaching and training on evidence-based practices in our preschool special education programs. We are also lacking consistency in curriculum. Based on that information, our leaders were able to take that and develop some goals so that we could start providing true coaching and training to our staff so our students could thrive. So the following year, we leveled our classes We hired our first behavior support specialist, which is what I do. So there's a group of us that are assigned to each special education classroom within the district, and our job is to provide training and coaching on evidence-based practices to the teachers and the paraeducators who work with our students with disabilities in the classrooms. We started providing monthly training and coaching on EBPs in the preschool setting. We've worked on trying to scale this up through elementary and secondary. In 2022, our district was awarded a grant so that we could support the use of training and coaching in our elementary and secondary self-contained classrooms. And then currently, we have so many students that continue to make progress and transition to less restrictive settings and have opportunities to learn alongside neurotypical peers because of the work that we've been able to do and the strategies that we've been able to implement within our programs. In Elk Grove, our preschool continuum, we have a variety of different settings in which our students can receive services. Our level 4 classroom is our most intensive level of support. So our students in those classrooms receive instruction at a 1 to a 1.5 ratio. So there's one adult to every 1 to 2 students. And there's usually a max of about 8 students on an IEP in those classrooms. Our level 3 classrooms, the ratio gets a little bit bigger as our students become a little bit more independent. So there's about 10 students. We do have neurotypical peers in these classrooms that our students are able to learn alongside on a daily basis. Level 2, the ratio continues to grow. So we have more students in those classrooms, fewer adults, and then more neurotypical peers. So we have a diverse range of individuals learning alongside each other in the classrooms. And then from there, our students transition to a level 1 classroom, which is our general education preschool classrooms, where we have a Head Start or a state preschool. We have a special education teacher and a general education teacher working together to provide services to the students in those classrooms, and 2 paraeducators, so a gen ed and a special ed paraeducator that provide those supports. You see the little kiddo moving along the continuum right there, because one of the unique things about our district is that it's a very fluid program. Students can transition to any type of setting between these different classrooms throughout the school year. They don't need to wait until their annual IEP when that comes around. As soon as the team recognizes, hey, this student has made a lot of progress, or maybe they need a different type of setting or program that's appropriate for them, we have a process to move them, and it takes a week, maybe 2, to get them moved to their new classroom setting. And it's something that our staff are accustomed to, new kids coming in and moving through the continuum pretty fluidly. Earlier, we talked about the evidence-based practices that we kind of follow going through with Captain. There's a list of 28 of them. One of the great things about Captain is we've got a lot of great resources. And so those evidence-based practices that we're working on implementing in our school settings are actually aligned with a lot of other district initiatives. So social emotional learning, universal design for learning, multi-tiered systems of support, positive behavior interventions and support, English language learner strategies, inclusive education practices. Captain on their website has crosswalks to show the overlap between the 28 evidence-based practices specifically for individuals with autism and how it overlaps with these other initiatives that are implemented in a lot of our school districts across the state. All right, so training and coaching on the EBPs in our programs. We're gonna go through what it looks like in our preschool program and our elementary and secondary program. So in preschool, it's a little unique because we're able to run a 4-day-a-week program alongside, so we model what our Head Starts do. So we have 4 days a week with students. Fridays are dedicated to training, coaching, IEP development and prep, and then prep time for our teachers. This has been super helpful with allowing our staff to have some time to prep and prepare materials that they need to use with their students throughout the school week. All of our teachers and paras participate in training on evidence-based practices throughout the school year. So it's really helpful because it's not just our teachers that are getting training on how to implement these EBPs in the classroom, but our paraeducators that are in there every day serving our students are receiving access to this training as well. And then we have behavior support specialists, and then also some of our speech therapists are part of Captain, and so we provide coaching together on the evidence-based practices that our staff get trained on throughout the week and throughout the school year. We use fidelity checklists, which you can see an example of right here on the right-hand side. We use a modified version of this, but they are free if you guys want to take them and use them on the Affirm modules, which we'll show in a little bit. But you can pull those and use them with your staff to make sure that as you're going through and coaching them on how to implement the EBPs, are we doing it with fidelity? Are we doing it with the way the research intended for it to be implemented? Because there's a difference between saying you're implementing visual supports and doing it the way that it's meant to be done, right? So we use the implementation fidelity checklist and the captain coaching model when we are supporting our staff. Some of the evidence-based practices that our preschool teachers and paraeducators receive access to throughout the year, we train on visual supports, reinforcement, functional communication training, antecedent-based intervention, social skills training, peer-based instruction and intervention, discrete trial teaching, naturalistic intervention, and prompting. And then these are just individualized for the specific students and classrooms that we support. In our elementary and secondary program, we're not able to just cancel school one day a week to provide training and coaching, so we have a slightly different model that we've been working on. So in this, for this age range of classrooms, we have teachers who volunteer to participate in our teacher capacity grant, where we are providing training on what we call our Core 4 grant. Training is provided on Saturdays throughout the school year, and for this model, we have teachers who volunteer to participate, and there's different perks for them to be able to participate. We have a behavior support specialist who's specifically assigned to these teachers who choose to participate in the grant, and they provide the training and coaching on implementation of the EBPs, same way that we do in preschool using the implementation fidelity checklists. The primary evidence-based practices that those teachers receive training on and coaching on are visual supports, reinforcement, and functional communication training. Now, we've been able to sustain this model in preschool for quite a while, since 2011, and there's been a lot of positive impacts within our preschool program for our students, our families, our staff, and then also just the school district as a whole. So our students, they have equal access to EBPs, curriculum, and structure. So it doesn't matter if they live on the north side of town or the south, east, west side of town, whatever classroom they end up in, they're gonna have the same access to those evidence-based practices because all the staff receive the same training and coaching. They also have the same access to curriculum. So not just their IEP goals that we're working on and focusing on, but there's specialized curriculum to help progress them through different things that they need to work on at their own pace. Our students in our level 1, 2, and 3 classrooms also have access to neurotypical peers, so they learn alongside them in these classrooms. We recruit peers from the community to come and join our preschool classes as their free preschool experience. So we offer free preschool for them. And as a result, we have a diverse group of preschoolers that we're teaching all together. Many of our students transition to less restrictive settings throughout the school year. Just this last year alone, we have about 159 preschoolers who transitioned from one of our self-contained special education preschool classrooms that will be going into a general education TK or kindergarten classroom this next school year. For our staff, some of the benefits are they get the training, right? They get the training and the coaching. We've been able to really help reduce burnout with those Friday trainings that we offer for them. They have an increased skill set, which means there's fewer behaviors, fewer challenges for them in the classroom because they're better prepared. And then increased retention. We have a really strong retention rate for our preschool special education staff. So we don't have a lot of turnover because they have the support that they need. With our families, we also have a parent training program that we offer to all of our families. So once a month, we offer parent training on an evidence-based practice, and then the parents and the families, they have an opportunity to follow up with their classroom teacher for a coaching session on how they can implement that specifically for their child at home. And then our district as a whole, we have more students in general education classrooms as we're able to help meet their needs and support them individually. which results in fewer special education classrooms, teachers, paras. In preschool alone, we have no due process cases, no students in non-public school. And then this last year alone, we had over 500 preschoolers in our district. So 500 3- and 4-year-olds with disabilities. Out of all of those kiddos, we only had 4 that required a one-on-one individual paraeducator to provide support to them in the classroom. So the coaching model, the training and coaching model from Captain really does work and helps support everyone within that support system for our individuals with autism. Now, if you work in the school district and you're like, hey, I want to go back and start doing some of this, there's 3 steps that you can do to get started. The first one is to conduct a needs assessment. So where do I start? What do I need to provide training on? Even if you're just a classroom teacher, you can go back and provide training to your paras on how to implement some of these EBPs. On the Captain website, there is a training and confidence survey that's free that you can pull and give your staff just to get a quick rundown on how familiar they are with evidence-based practices and how confident they are with implementing in the classroom. There's also something called the APERS, which is an Autism Program Environment Rating Scale, which is similar to the APDAR process that I mentioned at the beginning. This will help guide you through looking at the special education classrooms within the district and identifying the areas of need that you need to start with. Step 2 would be training your staff on the evidence-based practices. So, hey, we did this needs assessment. We noticed these are some areas we really need to focus on, maybe visual supports or prompting or reinforcement in these classrooms. How do I go about the next step? Well, we want to provide training on those identified evidence-based practices. Captain has a checklist that kind of outlines the high-quality training checklist. So what components do we want to have in a training in order for it to be effective? You guys can access that on the Captain website as well. And then in terms of training materials, you don't need to go and create your own training for each of these EBPs because they're already created for you. There's the Affirm modules, which are free online modules that you can pull and use and go through at your own pace, or you can assign them to staff to go through at their own pace. And it will provide them with the training and the research on each of those evidence-based practices. In our own district, we've been able to get these approved for our teachers and our paraeducators when they take these, that it counts towards salary step advancement. So something to think about, some incentive for the staff to go and learn more on the evidence-based practices. Captain also has some free trainings on each evidence-based practice on the Captain website. So there's a PDF PowerPoint of each of those that you can pull and use at your own pace as well. And then the last step would be provide coaching. Training alone is not enough. So research shows that if we provide training, 5% of the people who receive training are going to be able to walk away and implement that in their classroom. 5%, that's not enough, right? But if we provide support, admin support, coaching support, so someone to walk alongside of them and helping them to implement it in their classroom, then that goes up to 95%. So now we have 95% of the people walking away from the training, being able to go back and implement it in the classroom, which impacts more people, right? And that's our ultimate goal. So Captain has another checklist. We love checklists in Captain, which walks you through how to provide coaching. So just some quick, easy, simple steps, you know, pre-conference, observation, meeting with the staff afterwards to help support them with implementing those evidence-based practices and individualizing it for the students that they support. So we talked about the early start years, the school-based years. Now Mary's going to go back and talk about how we can effectively implement evidence-based practices in the home and community setting for adults.
Because kids grow up, right? And then what happens? What is available to our adults? Where are my adult self-advocates at? Hey. Okay, so we do have some concerns within our adult services community. Some of those, the IACC or Interagency Autism Coordinating Council has identified for us to target or address. These are some of the challenges that are faced when we're talking about our adult service setting. So one, being a lack of a well-trained and motivated workforce. For the most part, the people that are charged with working with our adults, let's think our day programming setting, which is kind of like an adult education setting, or our licensed care settings, those people are not going to be licensed or credentialed teachers or, have professional training in how to teach folks. So we don't have a lot of folks that are well trained in the use of evidence-based practices for skills teaching or behavior management. So then if we don't have people trained in that, then we're probably not using evidence-based practices in those settings. And then we have a lack of supervision. So by that qualified personnel, we don't have a lot of people to oversee or provide training and coaching in our adult service setting. And generally speaking, there's kind of a low sense of awareness of evidence-based practices or that they're even necessary or needed in that setting. So what could we do as captain, given this information, what could we do to help impact some change in this area? Because captain represents a multi-agency network of trainers, people that serve individuals with disabilities from birth through the lifespan. So if there's a need for our adult population, we wanted to try to address that. So what we decided to do is take some of those training materials, online training modules and such, and adapt them, because what we're given right now are training modules that use a lot of kids as examples in the training. So you'll see videos that I shared with you before, and there's a lot like that where it's an infant, toddler, a child in a preschool or education setting. And so when we're trying to use these training topics, because modeling can be used to teach adults too, but if I'm showing our adult service providers these videos and it's showing how to model with a 3-year-old, it's not making sense for them. They're going, what? I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not going to be teaching an adult to put the ball in the box. I'm teaching the adult how to use their EBT card, or I'm teaching the adult how to do their laundry. So we took those resources, those training resources, and made new ones. So same content, but now using adult examples and things that are relevant for adult living. And then provided those trainings to the professionals out there that are working with our adult population. This is just a little overview of what that process looked like. We started with doing some assessment, so assess what the individuals need as well as what the providers need training on. We adapted those training models and the resources. We provided training and coaching to the direct service providers. And then of course we evaluated our outcomes to see if this was a workable model so that we could use it more globally. Our service providers that participated in this project, we had, it was a 2-part project. The first pilot incorporated 6 day programs, and then our second component was 3 licensed residential facilities. What we noticed when we did our assessment was, first, there was no incentive. There was no reward systems in place. So we might have rules that everyone needs to follow in the home or in the day program, but why? Why am I going to do those things? Why am I going to do this worksheet you're putting in front of me? There was no motivational or reward systems in place. We also didn't have visual supports, which if we know anything about working with people that have disabilities, visual supports can be super integral for independence. And we didn't see any of those being used. They weren't using any group or even individual schedules. So again, within the same vein of visual supports, but no visual of what my schedule is. I need a visual of my schedule, guys. I mean, if I didn't have Outlook, I wouldn't be here today probably. No, I'm just kidding, Aubin, I'd be here. And then support, what we noticed is that it was generally provided in a do for format versus a do with. So what I mean by that is and this is the best example I can think of, is I was out at one of our care homes and an adult was outside and she was cold, and so she's shivering and she's saying, "I'm cold." And so the staff said, "Oh, hold on, I'll go get your jacket for you." Went and got the jacket, came and brought it to her and put it around her. Very nice. I mean, I love that. But also, we're not supporting her to be independent, and she totally has the capability to go in there and get her own jacket. Okay, so the evidence-based practices specifically that we trained our adult service providers on, for the day programs, we trained them in a reinforcement system for all of their sites, as well as visual supports. And then in the licensed care setting, we trained all the staff on visual supports, as well as prompting, but more importantly, prompt fading. So how to fade my help. I can help you really well, but how do I fade my help in a way that you can be more independent? So now let's talk about who participated in terms of our adults. In our day programs, we had 3 individuals that formally participated, but remember I said there were 6 sites. Each site has 30 people, so that's 180 people. We implemented site-wide reinforcement systems for all of them. So really and truly, all 180 individuals benefited from this intervention. But really only 3 did we do kind of individual programs for. And then in our licensed facilities, we had a total of 7 individuals that participated in that second phase. So once we had our individuals identified, then we needed to figure out what kinds of things were important to address. How could we incorporate these evidence-based practices in a meaningful way for these people? So we selected goals based on the things that were really important to the individuals, as well as things that were big health and safety ticket items. And so here's a couple of examples. One, we had a gal named Shannon, and she really enjoyed going to her day program, but she would get stuck in her morning routine, and sometimes it would take her up to 2 hours to get through it. She'd miss her transport. They'd come, they'd try to wait, but they had to move on at a certain point. So for her, we use visual supports to aid in her independence with that morning routine. And you guys, within 2 weeks, I mean, spoiler alert, 20 minutes. The morning routine was down to 20 minutes. This is not rocket science. This is easy and so impactful. And then our second example, we had a guy, he liked his privacy in the shower, which we all do, right? But he would occasionally scald himself because he would turn the water so hot and be under it for too long that he would burn himself in the shower if not monitored. So we put up a little sign with an arrow of where to not turn the nozzle past, and what do you know? Didn't burn himself anymore. Okay, so how did we get these things in place? We did a combination of what we call behavior skills training, which is very similar to what we talked about with parent implemented intervention. So we teach you what it is, we demonstrate it, role play, give feedback, and then coaching, the ongoing follow-up, observe, okay, give you some feedback, work out the kinks. This is just a visual to kind of demonstrate how this worked. So myself as the captain trainer, I trained the management staff, and then their management staff trained all of the direct service providers. So at the care homes, it's 24-hour care. So, I couldn't come out there and train the 10 to 2 a.m. shift, right? So they're training all shifts while I'm providing the oversight and the training to the management. So you can think of it as kind of a pyramidal training model. Here's just some examples. There's that shower arrow right there, super high tech. But my favorite is this one of Yolanda. She's from one of our licensed care homes. You can't really see what she's holding up, but that is the morning routine for Shannon. And she's holding up a sign number 1 because in 20 years of being an administrator, that was her first visual support she had ever made. And this is not to say anything bad about her. She was amazing. This just wasn't something she ever had gotten training on. I love this quote, tell me and I forget, like Becky said, and teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. And that's what I really think Yolanda represents in this story, because she was so involved. I didn't make that visual support for her. I brought out some of the materials, we put it all together, and she was deeply involved. Okay, so how did this venture work? How did using these captain training resources that really had only been used with kiddos, how did it work with our adult population? Well, in our day program, all 3 of our participants met all of their goals that we set. And then in the licensed care program, we only had 5 weeks, but still 92%. So we only had 1 goal that wasn't met. And more importantly than these numbers, and are we meeting goals or not goals, these specific individual outcomes really led to improved quality of life for these people. And I think that's really the takeaway, is why do we do this? We do this so that people can go to their day programs that they like to go to. We do this so people can be independent, making their own midnight snack, so they're not having to wait on someone else to do it. And then the service providers. We also had some really great outcomes from that perspective. We reduced their need to have to use one-on-one staffing, which is a really restrictive way of providing services to folks. In 1 year, across all 6 of those sites, they went from needing 13 one-on-one staffing to only 1. Increased knowledge and use of evidence-based practices. So before this, based on our survey information, 71% of the adult service providers that we surveyed reported having no formal training on visual supports or prompting. Reduce cost in workers' comp claims. So, if you're a business owner, that's a big deal. And also, it's something that they can put back into the program then. So then the consumers, our clients, our individuals, they're getting to benefit from that, because now we can provide more enrichment. And then overall, what they noticed was increased staff retention. And in a high turnover rate, and when consistency is so important and relationships are important with the people that are helping you, this was a really big one as well. Okay, and to bring it on home, Kristi's going to go through just a few examples of how we do all of this from a multi-agency network lens. So far, we've kind of talked about how it looks in our different service settings, but we also do a lot of work interagency as well.
And I want to thank my co-presenters for walking us through all ages and stages of life and how we can utilize evidence-based practices to really improve inclusive outcomes and ensure that evidence-based practices are being used not just in the school setting. So it was nice to see kind of the progression. I'm not sure if you guys picked up on that, but starting an early start, how we can then implement it in the schools, and then even further moving into the adult setting. So I talked a little bit earlier about interagency collaboration and just previewed that that's really around that building relationships, and that is one part of it. But just to set the stage, when we're talking about interagency collaboration in this platform, we're really referring to collaboration between our school districts and SELPAs, our regional centers, and family support networks. And not listed here, through Captain, we also work with higher education, okay? So we're really trying to make sure that evidence-based practices and training on evidence-based practices are being infused at the college level. So teachers are already coming in with some of this knowledge under their belt. So why is it important? I mean, interagency collaboration, that, I could go on for a really long time about the benefits of it. But of course, one of the first things that comes to mind is service delivery. So oftentimes, families are trying to navigate complex systems of support in the medical or social services world or educational world. And what ends up happening is you end up either with fragmented services or duplication of services, unless we have that interagency collaboration. So by allowing for that to happen. And I know within San Joaquin County, this has happened for many, many years. I've been in education for over 20 years, and through that entire time, I've definitely seen that. But I understand that's not always the case. And it's hard. It's hard to build up that network. It allows for shared strategic planning to take place so that we can pull together resources and move things along quicker. It opens up transparency in terms of information sharing, which will then build trust. And so, within our region, and we'll talk about some of the examples, but within our region, we've had meetings called Autism Connection, where the various providers that are supporting individuals with autism and other disabilities are coming together and sharing what challenges they're currently facing, what resource needs we have, which takes me to another one of the benefits, which is really looking at community needs and how we can come together and collaborate to meet the needs of the community, which are changing. Those are ever changing. And that's really at the heart of Captain as well. So we meet each year and talk about what are the needs at our specific community. California is a big state, right? So what we need here in Central California might look different than what they're experiencing in Northern or Southern California. Of course, if you have relationships with other providers in the area, we can preemptively, hopefully, avoid and resolve any potential conflicts much smoother. And another thing that we have found to be particularly helpful is opportunities to co-present like we're doing today. We can learn from one another, but then there can also be capacity building. So as you're working with individuals or professionals that are supporting the same individuals you are, but in a different way, it opens up your eyes, right? It gives you that big picture perspective, which is one of my favorite things about interagency collaboration. And this year we had the pleasure of co-coordinating with our Captain Region Autism Forum.
So we put this on, we brought it back this year. There was a bit of a pause from COVID, and we finally brought it back. We were really excited about it. But what's really neat is the committee or the panel that put together this forum spanned across multiple districts and counties within our area. We kind of serve 5 counties, even though we're based specifically out of San Joaquin. Our Captain group really looks at San Joaquin, Stanislaus, Calaveras, Amador, and Tuolumne County. And we had representation from multiple school districts in all of those areas. We had Turlock, Modesto, the County Office of Ed, Manteca Unified. So we have people from each of those regions participating in this committee and this panel to put together this forum, so that we had presenters and people presenting on a lot of the hot topics in all of these different areas that maybe parents or other people would need some additional training and support on. So that collaboration with our Captain Hook group, it's multiple people across different areas that we only interact with in this capacity on Captain, where our jobs are completely separate, but we're coming together to be able to provide that training and that additional support to the community in areas that we're seeing as like what we call hot topics or needs of that area.
And Danielle was mentioning just how we had players, right, involved from all these different areas. What do they say? Many hands make for light work. So this is what made this possible. I can't stress enough, this interagency collaboration is what makes things happen, right? Because if you try to take it all on your own, it's just going to be too much, right? Too heavy of a lift. And so with us coming together, we were able to pull on local talent. We were able to coordinate a panel similar to what we had up here today of individuals with autism and their families. And then we provided also trainings, for various trainings that were really tailored to the family experience, but also a few for educators.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had, like Kristi was saying, presenters in some of those areas too on personal experiences, what happens in their lives, what they did throughout their life, what helped and supported them, to kind of give that feedback to those family members that were in the audience attending the forum. So that's just something that we do in our region. One other thing to talk about is the Community Advisory Committee. It's another way of interagency collaboration. This is housed under your SELPA. So I recommend each of you to kind of go back and get that information from your area. But Community Advisory Committee is really a device group of a diverse group of community members who provide input, feedback, and different trainings and recommendations to help guide those programs or policies within your area. And it reflects the needs of the community within your area. So I was a part of our community advisory committee for 7 or 8 years. I was the regional center rep there. And each district has parent or family representation to participate on the board for the community advisory committee. At least in our region, that's how we have it set up. And we have a lot of parent voices there. A lot of it is very parent-led, and the voices of what's going on in that area. And then you also have different agencies represented as well. So Regional Center had reps, Department of Rehabilitation had a rep, Family Resource had a rep, SCDD, the State Council on Developmental Disabilities, also participated. So that's how it's set up in our area. And in your area, if there is a community advisory committee, I highly recommend you go find out when are their trainings, when are their meetings. If you're an active parent who wants to participate and be an advocate, that's something that you can participate in to advocate for.
And if you're not sure if you have a local CAC, I would recommend reaching out to your local SELPA representatives, and they should be able to guide you of the upcoming meetings.
And a lot of things that happen, there's a lot of resources are provided. We have multi-agency presentations. We train and go to each other's agencies to provide training on what each person does. So I could go to the Family Resource Network staff and present on what the regional center does. So it's kind of getting that information out there between all the different agencies. And then Becky's going to talk about one in their region.
This is just one other example of interagency collaboration that Mary and I's region, we're with the Capital Captain region, we put together and helped to host a mental health alliance for individuals with autism and co-occurring mental health conditions. We're finding that there's a gap between services for our individuals with autism who also have a mental health disability. So we were able to host that for a couple of years in a row.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was founded in 1998 with the promise to reduce and prevent the disabilities that can be associated with autism and other neurodevelopmental conditions. Every day, our clinicians and researchers make progress on that promise. Our groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other conditions associated with disability are helping affected individuals achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website or our social media platforms to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.